And to complete the most significant news for this day, Y News continues. Here are the top stories. The Department of Budget and Management hits groups that criticize the agreement signed by the Philippines with China. Budget Secretary Benjamin Diokno assures that contrary to the claims of what he called as alarmist groups, none of the deals with China are oppressive as each of the agreements passed through review. On Tuesday, the Philippines inked a total of 29 agreements with China in line with the visit of Chinese President Xi Jinping. Malacanang has earlier assured to release the details of the said deals, which include a memorandum of understanding on cooperation on oil and gas development. Diokno also denies that the Philippines is giving in to China's alleged debt trap in exchange for the country's rights over the hotly contested areas in the South China Sea.
These are coming from the alarmist group, right? There's no such thing as onerous conditions. We're smart, okay? We're not like other countries. Okay? We don't mortgage our territories for a loan that is as straightforward as a railway system, okay? And I said we have a very strict and rigorous process. It has to pass the cut-off of 10% economic internal rate of return, which is much, much higher than the cost of borrowing. Okay?
Meanwhile, Senate President Vicente Soto III calls on his colleagues to refrain from judging and criticizing the agreement signed by the Philippines with China. Soto says he sees no problem in these deals, particularly the plan to jointly develop oil and gas, as the proposal states an acceptable 60-40 profit sharing. Members of the opposition group earlier urged the Malacanang to release the details of these deals with China amid fears that these may be disadvantageous to the Philippines. The opposition also sees negative implications of the said agreement with Manila's arbitration victory against China in the West Philippine Sea dispute. But Soto says President Xi Jinping expressed good intentions on the matter during their meeting earlier.
Sabi niya, sana daw itong South China Sea o West Philippine Sea sa atin ay maging sea of peace and friendship.
Senate Majority Leader Juan Miguel Zubiri also echoes Soto's sentiments, calling the signed agreement a win-win solution.
Kasi right now, I think we're in a golden age once again of Philippine-Chinese friendship and relationship. I think we should top that idea that we should focus on cooperation and friendship.
The Department of Transportation warns of possible sanctions for drivers who took part in the truck holiday being staged to protest the planned phase-out of trucks that are at least 15 years old. The DOTR says it will not hesitate to impose penalties on trucks with franchises and private vehicles proven to have disrupted the flow of commerce to and from the Manila port area, delaying the transportation of goods and services. On Monday, a group of truckers and brokers kicked off their 6-day truck holiday to oppose the planned phase-out and worsening congestion of empty containers in the port.
Kapag hinarangan mo o pinigil mo yung malayang komersyo sa pantalan, yung paglabas ng mga kargamento, ano ba ang mangyayari, hindi ba? Ang mangyayari diyan, kukulangin ang supply, tataas ang presyo or mawawalan ng supply, at yung lahat ng yung pangangailangan ng ating bayan, ng ating mga kababayan, hindi maibibigay at hindi maipoprovide yung serbisyo.
The DOTR, however, clarifies it is ready to withdraw the sanctions if protesting truckers will agree to a dialogue and resume their operations. The agency also made clear that the policy on phasing out old trucks will be based on its road worthiness and that the problem on port congestion is being addressed. In other news, the National Disaster Risk Reduction and Management Council has yet to receive any report on casualties after Tropical Depression Samuel made landfall over Borongan, Samar early Wednesday. The NDRRMC says many residents in areas that were on the storm's direct path were evacuated ahead of its onslaught. Tropical Depression Samuel packed moderate to heavy rains that triggered flooding and minor landslides in Dinagat Island and other areas in the eastern Visayas. Despite the weakening of the storm, the NDRRMC remains on blue alert to allow disaster teams to quickly respond to those in need of assistance. The government also assures it has pre-positioned food, non-food and medical supplies in different points and allocated over 2 billion peso standby fund for calamity victims.
Hindi tayo pwede magpabaya kasi hanggang merong isang buhay na nakalagay sa alanganin, patataasin pa natin yung ating pagbabantay at pagtutok. Yung OCD, personnel ng Operation Service, plus yung mga uniform services, plus yung mga essential forecasting like pag-asa, yung dyan sila. So yung AFP, yung PNP, yung Bureau of Fire, tsaka Philippine Coast Guard, nagmo-monitor sila.
Meanwhile, the local government of El Nido has ordered to shut down the Nest El Nido Resort in Masagana Village for violating the 3-meter easement zone policy. Local authorities say the resort failed to comply with the order to self-demolish the structures that were erected on the easement zone within 20 days.
Kung ang violation namin siguro hindi naman siya nakaka-harm talaga sa tao. Kasi di ba ito lang naman yung easement So, siguro naman madadaanan pa rin naman ng tao kasi malawak pa yung Tsaka hindi namin talaga alam kung saan yung pinakasukat talaga.
Pero sa amin ngayon ma'am, kasi kami ang na-orderan ng closure, mag-implement po kami. So, ang gagawin po namin ngayon, pa-receive po namin sa inyo yung sulat at maglalagay kami ng signage na close yung establishment.
The LGU reports that of the 3,000 business establishments in El Nido, 53 have opted to self-demolish out of the 68 that were initially found to have violated the 3-meter easement zone policy. The ongoing rehabilitation in El Nido is in response to the order of President Rodrigo Duterte, similar to his directive on Boracay Island. The Department of Health, or DOH, cautions the public against self-medication, especially if dealing with antibiotics, as it can lead to antimicrobial resistance. According to Health Secretary Francisco Duque III, the public should go to the public health centers or private hospitals to seek medical consultation and obtain the right prescription. Duque also advises patients to strictly follow the doctor's prescription and that common cold should not be treated with antibiotics to avoid microbial resistance. Based on the latest report of the World Health Organization, around 700,000 people die each year due to antimicrobial resistance, which is defined as the ability of the microorganism to stop antivirals, antibiotics, and other microbials from working against it. The WHO considers this a serious global health concern as it comprises the ability to treat infectious diseases and undermines many other advances in medicine in both human and animal health.
See that many people believe that antibiotics are a general medicine that should be used whenever there's an infection, but that is not true. Antibiotics are very powerful drugs that need to be used very carefully in a very targeted manner.
Tanggalin natin yung self-medication behavior natin, Kasi hindi naman po kayo mga nagpakadalubhasa o nag-aral para maging doktor at siguraduhin buuin ang pag-iinom nung niresetang gamot. Kasi kung hindi, magkakaproblema tayo dahil sa susunod na iinom kayo ng gamot na hindi niyo kinumpleto ang inuman ay mangyayari ho dyan, gagastos kayo na mas malaki dahil mas mabigat na gamutan.
And for the news abroad, U.S. President Donald Trump said comparisons between personal email use of former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton's and reports that his daughter and top White House advisor Ivanka had repeatedly used a personal email account for government business last year were fake news. A White House review of Ivanka Trump's email found she used her personal account up to 100 times to contact other Trump administration officials. The Washington Post reported on Monday, citing people familiar with the review. Use of a personal account for government business could potentially violate a law requiring preservation of all presidential records. Trump repeatedly blasted Clinton, his Democratic rival in the 2016 presidential election campaign, over her use of personal email and a private server while she was U.S. Secretary of State, and promised to investigate her once in office.
Just so you understand, early on, and for a little period of time, Ivanka did some emails. They weren't classified like Hillary Clinton. They weren't deleted like Hillary Clinton, who deleted 33. She wasn't doing anything to hide her emails. I looked at it just very briefly today, and the presidential records, they're all in presidential records. There was no hiding. There was no deleting like Hillary Clinton did. There was no service in the basement like Hillary Clinton had. You're talking about a whole different, you're talking about all fake news.
The incoming immigration chief of Mexico weighs options for Migrant Caravan on whether to allow them to stay in the country. The U.S. Secretary of Homeland Security, meanwhile, dismisses the potential claims for asylum for a band of migrants. Kath Carriedo tells us why.
Mexico's incoming immigration head Tonatio Guillen Lopez said on Tuesday that options for a migrant caravan in the country should be considered, with thousands of Central Americans gathered at the northern border seeking passage to the United States. About 6,000 Central Americans have reached the border cities of Tijuana and Mexicali, according to local officials. More bands of migrants are making their way toward Tijuana, with around 10,000 expected. They are fleeing poverty, crime, and violence back home, but U.S. President Donald Trump has referred to the group as an invasion and sent thousands of soldiers to the border in response. Guillen Lopez rejected the American president's comments on the migrants.
Desde que empezó este movimiento en Centroamérica, pues hubo un uso muy explícito del gobierno de Estados Unidos y del presidente.
Since this movement started in Central America, there has been an explicit position from the United States government and President Donald Trump on the caravan. It was seen as a big threat. He said it was an invasion many times. He pressured the Mexican government many times. He even announced that the army will be here and so on. But when you see the people, the children, the women, their difficult humanitarian situation, what is the threat?
Las señoras, su condición humana tan difícil, pues, ¿dónde está esa amenaza?
Outgoing President Enrique Peña Nieto has offered jobs to the migrants, saying that those who obtained legal status could occupy thousands of vacancies. Guillen Lopez also talked up options for the group to remain in Mexico.
De regularización de su presencia en México.
Regarding the regularization of their presence in Mexico, giving them options has been tried, but these people have the objective of asylum in the United States. So we have to engage in this dialogue in regards to their objective and the possibilities that Mexico can offer them.
La meta que tienen trazada y las posibilidades que México puede ofrecer.
But it is unknown how many would take up an offer to Mexico. Many migrants prefer to seek work north of the border, with the US dollar stretching further so as to send money back home to family members. Meanwhile, U.S. Secretary of Homeland Security Kirstjen Nielsen visited part of the United States-Mexico border at Imperial Beach, California on Tuesday, where she spoke about the group of migrants headed toward the Mexico side of the border. Nielsen said the so-called caravan contained thousands of people, at least 500 of whom are identified as criminals and gang members. In her remarks, Nielsen dismissed the potential claims for asylum, saying that most of those trying to enter the U.S. illegally were economic migrants.
Many of those who are here or en route to our southern border via these caravans are economic migrants or are seeking to be reunited with their families already in the United States. Wanting a job is not a basis for asylum under U.S. law. Wanting to be reunited with your family is not a basis for asylum under U.S. law. Wanting to live in the United States, not a basis of asylum under U.S. law.
Kath Carriedo, UNTV News and Rescue, USA.
Meanwhile, a dead sperm whale that washed ashore in a national park in Indonesia had nearly 6 kilograms or 13 pounds of plastic waste in its stomach. Park officials say that items found included 115 drinking cups, 4 plastic bottles, 25 plastic bags, and 2 flip-flops. The carcass of the 31-foot mammal was found in waters near Kapota Island in the Wakatobi National Park late on Monday. The discovery had caused consternation among environmentalists. Scientists make a significant breakthrough in stem cell research and hematopoietic stem cell transplantation. Here's why from Joe Anano.
Scientists have analyzed the complete dynamic process of the homing of hematopoietic stem cells in vivo for the first time in the world with the research results published in Britain's prestigious scientific journal Nature on Tuesday. The research is of great significance to stem cell research and hematopoietic stem cell transplantation. Hematopoietic stem cell transplantation has been widely used in the treatment of major diseases. One of the main reasons being that this kind of stem cell can successfully reach hematopoietic tissue, which is considered their most suitable microenvironment to differentiate and produce all types of blood cells for life. The process by which stem cells in the blood circulate in search of their most suitable microenvironment is called homing, and only when they find their own home can they perform their functions effectively. After years of research, researchers at the Shanghai Institute of Nutrition and Health under the Chinese Academy of Sciences integrated a variety of techniques including genetic regulation, immunofluorescence labeling, and in vivo imaging, and directly observed the whole process of the homing of newborn hematopoietic stem cells in model animals. Researchers found that such leader cells are a new subtype of macrophages that had never been defined. Leader cells can identify hematopoietic stem cells that enter hematopoietic tissue and introduce them into specific vascular structures to achieve homing.
The studies uncovered unprecedented insight into how hematopoietic stem cells homing occurred in vivo in live animals. This finding could also be key to improve bone marrow transplantation success in the future.
Hematopoietic stem cells are a common source of all kinds of cells in human blood, including red blood cells, white blood cells, and platelets. Joanano, UNTV News and Rescue.
And those are the reasons behind the news, November 21st, 2018. On behalf of Rheena, Villamor-Camara, and Angelo, Castro III, I am Thio, because we need to know, we will always ask why. Good evening.